I'm going to say these guys are probably the coolest monstrous infantry in the game. But are they even good? Sacred Kroxigors here. This is a replay from Bears up against Von Karstein. Lizardmen versus Greenskins. We'll talk more about the Sacred Kroxigors in just a second, but we've got the ROR here, cohort of Quaddle, plus another unit there on the side. 2 solar engines with Saurus Oldblood, Skink Priest, Lore of Beasts, of course, Star Chamber Guardians, and some Skink cohorts, as well as Chameleons. As for the Greenskins, going to be led by Skarsnik. Got a Night Goblin Shaman and Bob, 1 Stone Troll, and the Swamp Things, Regiment of Renowned River Trolls. Definitely very solid poison attacks. Of course, they have that AoE melee attack debuff and also cause fear and terror. And they are the terror unit in this army. We've also got Black Orcs, 8-Peak Loons, bunch of Orc Boys. Pretty solid in this matchup. And Nasty Skulkers for bombs and cheap AP. Mangy Marauders, Spider Rider Archers for a nice skirmish force. So about these guys, Bear's intention here, he said in chat after the live stream where this took place, that the goal was if he comes up against a Savage Orc build, he's got magic attacks. Cohort of Quaddle also have sundering, armor sundering rather, and physical resistance, so they're pretty decent. They can hold up a little bit better in melee against non-magic units, obviously. And the weapon strength here is pretty solid. 120 weapon strength overall is definitely on the higher end. For monstrous infantry. 84 armor piercing is also pretty legit, so we'll see how they do here. Main downsides why you don't see these guys too much is their melee defense and attack are pretty low for the cost. You can help buff them up though, which is I guess kind of the point of the Saurus Oldblood here. He's got Horn of Kygor and Stand Your Ground, so he can give that standard melee attack and defense buff. He's going to dive in the center though with the Temple Guards there, and the regular Sacred Kroxigors get matched up against the Swamp Things here with some Skinks. You might think this is going to be a pretty terrible engagement. The Greenskins are fighting slightly uphill. The Skinks actually have good enough stats. I mean, Orc Boys are not great in terms of attack and defense for their cost, to be honest. So Skinks can actually trade decently well there. The Enrage gets popped here on the Saurus Oldblood, and he's going to get the Daka. Just all of the arrows of the Orcs, turning that poor Carnosaur into a pincushion. We've got the Feral Manticore being summoned by the Lizardmen to try and respond, though. Wah gets popped. Unfortunately, the Stone Trolls did just rout there. Manticore's going to drop down in this backline and go after some of those archers. Meanwhile, the solar engines are just applying pressure. Although shooting the Stone Trolls, because the magic and missile resistance isn't great, applying that blind debuff you can see there is very good, as their melee attack and defense do go down significantly. But Saurus Oldblood definitely in trouble, tries to rally over to these Sacred Kroxigors, but haven't really been highlighting this one unit too much. It's basically Cohort of Waddle came in and just cleaned up some Orc Boys very cost effectively. Very cool animations, but they're going to start to roll up this flank here and kind of collapse in. Solar Engine again hits, and not only hits, but applies that blind debuff. Look at that, 0 melee attack and defense. Those Orc Boys definitely are going to want to rout there. They at least pull back, and Cohort of Waddle kind of collapse down into the Night Goblins. That high weapon strength, considering that a lot of Greenskins units have decent HP, especially infantry-centric armies like this, having that high weapon strength is definitely pretty helpful. Swamp Things, though, still fighting, and I was pretty surprised. These Sacred Kroxigors only 26 melee defense, and I guess coming back and looking at it, I mean, Nasty Skulkers 26 attack, their base hit chance, which is what, 35%? Swamp Things, again, 38 attack. They're hitting decently. They should be hitting decently often, but these Sacred Kroxigors were able to hold out for quite a long time. Get some pretty good value there, just about an XP chevron. But the Cohort of Waddle are definitely going to be very good, just coming in, collapsing off this flank. Armor Sundering in particular is just a great kind of support tool. Saurus, there's no Saurus here, which Saurus have a lot of non-AP weapon strength for their cost, which makes the Armor Sundering pretty good for them. But just in general, like here, these Stone Trolls are down to only 40 armor, so if there's, you know, Skinks, if there's whatever incidental Javelins, or like these Chameleon Skinks now coming forward who had been a little bit forgotten maybe, or let's say tactical reserve until now, they can come in and just do more damage, right? And Black Orcs, same thing, they're down to 80 armor, so that Armor Sundering of the ROR is quite nice to have for Lizardmen. And the combination in particular with the Saurus Oldblood is quite powerful. Now the Oldblood came in, took a bunch of damage. If you guys want another cast, by the way, I did cast this one live, but he's got only 40 HP here. He's going to rout again. He'll be hanging around because of Lizardmen's high leadership, and that's something to consider. A lot of people have been saying that Greenskins are top tier faction, I would broadly agree with that, but they're still the Greenskins. Leadership is still an issue for them broadly, kind of just as a faction. And it's going to definitely come into play in this type of a situation where especially Lizardmen have a couple of really healthy monsters still. These Solar Engines, having expended most of their ammunition, are now fighting in melee against the Swamp Things, who will not get terrified, but still, they are just trolls, right? Still don't have the greatest leadership in the world at the end of the day. And yeah, we'll see. The Court of Waddle, we catch back up with them. Did get routed off here. They're pretty low, 1200 HP with about 7 models left. The things really aren't looking great at this point, but yeah, Star Chamber Guardians are here as well. 76 kills, about 1000 HP. The Orc Boys are coming back. The Fermented Fungi gets popped on the Skink Priest, enrages him in, but you can see Saurus Oldblood coming back. Unfortunately, he had to pop the Cold-Blooded on himself. He's not going to be able to use it on the Skink Bro. He gets in there. Scarsnake going to go all ham with Gobbler as the two Bastiladons hold out. Star Chamber Guardians are coming back, and Troll's leadership still not doing great. Swamp Things are wavering there, and here it comes. A Saurus Oldblood comes in, pops 2 big buffs, and that allows these Stegodons to then kind of clean up a little bit there. There's these Skinks fighting in here too, who are all juiced up. 39 and 49 for regular Skink cohort is fantastic. The Star Chamber Guardians can get in here, provide a tiny bit of Guardian, see if they can keep the Saurus Oldblood alive. He actually goes down though, but the Cohort of Waddle all this time, they got back, got in here, and just started wrecking shop on this range line. And Orc Air Boys are pretty sturdy range units. Like, sometimes Cavalry even can struggle to take them out effectively. But definitely monstrous infantry that has the mash to kind of push through and big attack animations to disrupt. It came in and done a ton of damage, 156 kills. And a little bit of friendly fire there, only 2 models left, but absolutely cleaned up shop. Meanwhile, Scarsnick here on the high ground, these 2 Solar Engines, still healthy enough that he gets terrified. A handful, 23 Star Chamber Guardians, oh man, just absolutely irresolute, almost dwarf-like in terms of leadership. Basically unbreakable. One thing that makes the Lizardmen quite strong. Temple Guard in particular have really good leadership, and I am planning on talking about them at some point. But at this point, yeah, the Sacred Kroxigors have already done their work. There's still, yeah, 2 of them. They may come back. We'll see. Then basically through the end game here, we're more or less going to see the Solar Engines kind of blast. Scarsnick, as you would expect, he does pop the Fungi, but they also have anti-infantry. Not the best melee attack, but 2 single entities fighting 1 single entity. The 2 will usually win, and especially if they have that much HP in comparison. But yeah, just some more cleanup phase basically. As Scarsnick routes, the Air Boys kind of make their last stand. They're all eventually going to rout. Skinks, and one big advantage of Skinks is that they are very fast, and this other Chameleon Skink too, with the full ammo, just been peppering the whole time. Providing that leadership damage of being shot is a pretty significant leadership penalty. So there it is. Beautiful stuff. Very well played both players. It was a not really nice back and forth game. Looking tricky for a minute for Bears there, but yeah, that Saurus Oldblood at 80 HP, running back in and popping those 2 big buffs to help. And the Skink cohorts too, man, they're absolutely beast in that situation, just cleaning up shop. Yeah, fun stuff. The 2 Solar Engines, of course, you guys know I'm huge fans of these. Very essential tool for the Lizardmen. How about this Cohort of Waddle, and even the Sacred Kroxigors that got in kind of a pretty bad engagement. 74 kills, 156 kills. Just cleaning up a lot of the kind of lower tier Greenskins stuff. Orc Boys, like I said, they're pretty solid. They don't have the greatest attack and defense. Same thing with Air Boys. So the fact that the Sacred Kroxigors don't have that great of combat stats is not so much of an issue. Their high weapon strength, though, allows them to chew through the HP very, very quickly there. And credit to Von Karstein. I mean, he made a really nice push. Was looking pretty good for him there, but the Greenskins' leadership issues definitely came in and bit him in the butt there in the end. Is kind of to be expected, unfortunately, which is why I still see the Greenskins as like S tier, or maybe like on borderline S, A tier faction. But anyway, let's go ahead and just finish up here with the Sacred Kroxigors. Couple quick comparisons on these guys. Immediately you might think of, say, Famir, which is kind of what I think is a decent comparison in terms of both having magic attacks, and, you know, the ROR here has armor sundering, but Famir, I would argue, are just straight up better in pretty much every way. Famir are maybe the best monstrous infantry in the game. I haven't fully decided who that is yet. Might be something else, but Famir are very, very good. 110 armor, so if we compare just the basic Famir here, 50 points more, you get more armor, a little less HP than the Sacred Kroxigors, though. Famir have slightly less melee attack, but much better melee defense. 42 melee defense is very solid for monstrous infantry. Less weapon strength, but they do have armor sundering baseline. And these guys have, what, 15% missile resistance, whereas the Famir have no baseline, but as long as they're not wavering, if their leadership is above 50%, they have actually 22%. So kind of a bit of a trade-off there. But the fact that they have armor sundering basically for the same cost, more or less, is pretty nice. Sacred Kroxigors can hide, though, which is interesting. Famir cannot. A little bit inconsistent, to be honest, on which monstrous infantry can hide and which can't. But anyway, yeah, the Sacred Kroxigors, really the melee defense is one thing that makes them stand out, but the weapon strength difference is pretty significant as well. 30 extra weapon strength means that the Sacred Kroxigors just hit very hard, right? And so you think about their lack of combat stats, the Saurus Old Blood in particular comes in very handy here, given that he has Horn of Kygor plus Stand Your Ground, gives you kind of that AoE standard attack defense buff. Likewise, if you do take Lore of Heavens, it can be nice to throw around this Harmonic Convergence to buff their stats, just single target. But another really good one is Curse the Midnight Wind. Lowers melee attack, plus you can stack some armor sundering to get minus 60 in total from the Cohort of Waddle. Just light something up with javelins. Actually a pretty nice kind of hidden synergy there. So I would honestly, you know, Lore of Beasts is very much in vogue right now. The Manticore summons and everything are nice, but this is something else to consider. You could even also just take him with just the Manticore summon only, which is relatively cheap. He also has a chassis for free Cold-Blooded as well. I guess not free, you do pay for it, but yeah, that would be pretty solid there. These two support spells I'm a big fan of. The melee attack is basically the same thing as buffing melee defense, right, for these guys. And yeah, like I said, with the armor sundering, definitely can get some good synergy there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.